moved beyond that. That was our safety net and our starting point. And we've hit on the idea of choosing a topic and calling in people, using all the various networks and social media that we have, and workshopping to develop new stories and new anecdotes, and then reworking them, and in a creative process taking weeks and even months to develop a new script or a new performance piece. As I say, we're at a point now where we've had 4 successful productions. And in a sense, there's been an Icarus effect. We've flown too close to the sun a little bit, because Transcript, our 4th production, has been tremendously successful, but it only needed 6 actors. And we're a larger community than that. And when we were rotating from our community, 12 and 14 and 16 people on stage, and when there was more music and dance, and when there were new productions requiring the visual artists to produce theater programs and website material, we were more dynamic. And Transcript has required so much of our energy in the past year. Tomorrow, the Faith and Arts Ottawa Ministry Board will be meeting, and we know we're at a fork in the road, and we think, if you can see my hands, we will take it. We will continue Transcript, but we will start a new theater project that'll involve more people. Also, the Transcript actors, the 6 people, they don't all want to continue doing that, so we can rotate some people in. Documentary theater is theater that makes a difference. It's used in Latin America and in developing countries to animate social concern, to give permission to criticize institutions, the status quo. It can be tremendously anarchist in a faithful Jesus way, if I can put it that way. And it's wonderfully community building, even for SB&R young artists who reject institutional communities. So we're excited about it. I'll just take a moment to say there is one other concern: the sustainability of a ministry like this. We have no staff, we have no building, we have no overhead, but we do need money to gather, to feed, to pay expenses. By the way, we don't do anything without a meal. A hot, nourishing, shared meal, cooked by more than one person and cooked by members of the group and shared by the group. But Faith and Arts Ottawa wants to pay the bill for that, and we want to provide the materials. So how will this be sustainable? We've just received an Embracing the Spirit growth grant in the amount of $25,000, specifically tagged to hire a young adult to help us administer our programming. And my goodness, as I chair the board, that will really help, because as volunteers, we are kind of at our limits in terms of booking rooms and looking after the logistics, and the website is neglected and so on, you know.
Okay. So Tom, I should probably pause you at that point, if that's okay.
Fine. Yes.
I appreciate your explanations, and that was really helpful, and it triggered my memories about some of the knowings I have about that theater form, which is really engaging. So thank you for sharing that. And it's exciting to hear what the possibilities are for this project that you're working on, and all the young people that are involved. If you have any images or pictures from your work together, if you could send them to me, that would be great. Thank you.
We do.
Sandy, if you would like to share a bit about kind of what's bubbling, what's coming up, coming together, what's happening with your in your context.
Yeah, first I want to say I'm so inspired by the 2 other speakers today, And I can see some commonality between issues that we are trying to overcome, as well as things that they have touched on. Both speakers talked about sustainability money, getting grants to take those growth steps forward. And that certainly would be something that we share. We've been very fortunate also to have embracing the Spirit funds to try to implement some of the things that we envision. As a result of application to Embracing the Spirit a year ago, and some of the questions that they were asking within their application process, it certainly started us thinking about a few things that we needed to be more reflective on. And one of them was the idea of partnerships outside of the church. And so this year in particular, we had done that all along, but not thoughtfully. People in Winnipeg tend to think about partnerships a lot, but we had not been overly thoughtful about it. So this year, we sort of focused on the concept of partnerships and what are good partnerships, who potentially is a partner, and without going out necessarily to seek those partners, somehow that reflection and that energy attracted partners to us. So this is what is bubbling for us right now, is some very significant partnerships involving outside organizations. So what do they bring to us? Obviously, they bring increased capacity. And Tom was just expounding on the idea that they are volunteers, and there's a limit to all of our volunteer capacity. So external organizations help to bring increased capacity to achieve some of these things, as well as they bring increased connections to other sources of funding that churches don't necessarily think of or have access to, or as a lot of you have probably experienced when you look at other funding opportunities, the list often says will not fund religious organizations, et cetera, et cetera. So, and they bring moreover, a source of expertise that we don't necessarily have. So right now we have a major partner who has been in the music industry across Canada and happens to be in Winnipeg, resides in Winnipeg, and has significant experience in that area, in a concert area. We also bring to the table a recent artist in residence that we're actually about to announce publicly, which are theater people, actors and directors who wish to do community theater programming out of our church, and have already received some support from Stratford in terms of a financial grant to help that go on. And it's because of their reputation, their track record, et cetera, that they're accessing a grant of this nature. So in a nutshell, that is really what is bubbling for us, over and above the idea now that we're going year long versus 5 or 6 weeks. So this is becoming part of who we are on a consistent basis in a new way. We're reaching up to a new plateau, and we're achieving a new plateau.
Great. Thank you so much, Sandy. And yeah, it feels like there's so much gift in all the stories that are being shared. I'd like to make space at this point for some of the participants who are on the call. If you have any questions or things that are resonating for you with what our topic guides have shared, maybe Michelle, I'll start with you because I know you have to leave at 11:45. So is there, if you would like, is there anything that's kind of resonating with you particularly, or questions that you have?
I think the thing that's hitting me the most right now is that is the SBNR group, the spiritual but not religious. It seems to be the biggest challenge that we have in our location in Toronto here, is that the young people and people with young families, they like the ritual of baptism and weddings and Christmas pageant. They like all of those things, but they don't want to come on Sundays for worship. So most of our worship is people who are 65 and older, and they're very loyal. So now that we have this new challenge of joining with this church that was very active with musical theater, I like the idea of definitely partnering with groups that would be involved with a spiritual group, because we get labeled for being a religious group. So trying to change that that brand, our brand, that we are spiritual. I love Jesus. Not everybody does, and that's okay. But how we brand that so that we get those spiritual people to come and share their art gifts with us. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions or resonances from our participants today?
Yeah, I think one thing that hits me is I'm not hearing any interaction with other religions, and I'm not hearing any interaction with the academic community in terms of, I mean, Carla, who works with Edge, and I have thought about the church as a community hub, of which the ministry is only a part of that hub. And I think what I've heard today is that there are other aspects to the facility that really make it a community hub for a variety of activity.
Lovely. Thank you, Peter. Martin or Anita, did you have any comments or questions, resonances?
I'm still trying to glean the best I can from the overwhelming urban viewpoint to my small rural existence.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major problem, especially a rural that suffers from depopulation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still working at it. That's why I cite onto these things to come up with something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say, sorry, this is Anita Warner. Same thing in our context, very rural. So it's just a different reality of numbers and things we can do.
Well, there's a church in Toronto that is very small. They have 35 members of the church. And their revenue source is anything but the church. So they are becoming a full community hub.
Yes, I agree.
Providing different activities and different users of the facility. And I think that is kind of the future in the case of the United Church, because other than closing, it's better to engage with the community and give back to the community and have the community use the church facility as a community hub.
I agree with Peter. We are fully rented. Like the tenants that we have a nursery school, and we have a circus school, and we have a computer programming school. So we get a lot of traffic. We get hundreds of families through our building doors every week. The problem is we have a worship and spirituality committee that says you can't rent out all of this space because they are sacred. So this is a challenge. So we're looking at actually physically building more space for the community.
Interesting. So, and in some ways, your comment, Michelle, highlights a question that I have as I'm listening. So the wondering that I have as I'm listening is, like, how do we, like, in the midst of this abundance, which is what I'm hearing, which is amazing, where do the threads and the pieces of the spiritual conversation, how do they weave in and out of all of this activity and work in terms of our the resource and the asset we have as communities of faith in terms of our experience of God? And how does that all dovetail in and out of this work and this abundance that's going on? And I'd be really interested in hearing what experience folk have had with that wondering. And Pat, you're nodding your head, so I'm not sure if that's a nod that's a good question or a nod, or you have had some thoughts about it, or Sandy also has. Maybe Sandy? Yeah, sure. Or Pat, go ahead.
We've done a lot of thinking about that, Sarah. Certainly, what we believe is the arts is an expression of our spirit, and expressing our spirit brings people together in a harmony and a harmonious way that sometimes a worship service isn't going to do. So it's a different form of worship, of coming together as community. I wanted to address something that Martin was saying, and I wouldn't call Brockville a big urban center. It's certainly bigger than he's dealing with. We're 20,000. And one of the reasons that we've initiated things like, and it's a group, I would say the board of directors for Youth Opportunities in the Arts has got 80% are from St. John's United, and they recognized a need of the withdrawal of arts funding and education in Eastern Ontario. So we're down about 65 to 70% of art funding in the last 10 years. And we wanted to try to supplement that. So getting to Peter's question about where are the educators, we are bringing professional artists in different and assorted means to try to engage youth in the ability to get in touch with their artistic expression in that avenue. Martin, we're bringing them in from rural communities. Brockville services quite a broad rural community. It's not the same challenge as yours, but there are ways to act as a hub. I think some of the things that you're doing are very encouraging. So,
Sandy, you wanted to contribute to that into the conversation. Thank you, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
Peter was asking where the academics, how does this translate into community hub concept, etc. Experienced over the last couple of years is our part of our philosophy or approach is to give emerging artists an opportunity. So over the last year, for example, we have had a large number of students looking for a performance space for their final performances from the University of Manitoba Faculty of Music come to us. We give them the space, nothing, and the profs come in to mark them, okay? So it's part of our spiritual approach. You know, we've taken the sort of a money-making focus right off the table. And what we keep on the table is how can we be of service? With a sort of a faith foundation that if we keep focused on that as a missional aspect, it's going to lead us down a road, and we will accept the results of where it leads us, either way. Whether it ends up sustaining us or not sustaining us, we have decided to accept that. So our focus is very much mission-based. A good example of how spirituality weaves within this, even though we're not overtly sort of advertising a spiritual event, is for a number of years, we have opened the church to young musicians who people would call metal or punk musicians, but they're under the age of 18 and they're not able to play with their bands in bars, let's say. So we've opened the church to them for free. So they come with their families and their friends, and they're horrifically loud and bizarre. And one night, one of them spray painted on the steps of the church, "Best metal church ever." You know, but a number of those youth have gone on to enter university, etc., and they will literally say that it's as a result of the openness of this place to have them and their interaction with some positive adults in their life, that they were led down a road which society would deem as much more productive than the one that they were sort of headed towards. So we're not overtly doing anything there. We're just being hospitable. And that seems to be sort of a good example of how it ends up being at our church.
Another example would be in Ohio, there's a nonprofit pub run by a pastor, if you can believe it. And the profit goes into one of 6 bottles that are different charities. And so the customers get to choose which charity their profit goes into. I want to give you another example. This morning at our Markham Community Innovation Hub, we had about 15 hubsters there to discuss a problem or an opportunity and to share with each other. The minister of the church was there, Catherine Selby, who's 35 years old, and will go to the pub and have a drink with anybody. But she also stayed the whole time and contributed to helping these hubsters grow their enterprise. And I think more engagement by ministry staff with people within and without. Now, in terms of the rural community church, there's one church that I've been talking to. In their sanctuary, they're going to remove the pews in the sanctuary and replace them with chairs on wheels so they can reconfigure that sanctuary for a variety of events. In terms of the rural community, also, that hub can take 3 forms. It can be the bricks and mortar form, it can be the online hub, and it can be the community outreach where you go to neighboring communities and you run a workshop or you do some coaching.
Great, thank you, Peter. Any other questions or comments from Anita or Martin as you're kind of...
Yeah, this is Anita speaking. I just wanted to say that my daughter and her boyfriend have been at Crescent and Fort Rouge performing with that program that we just heard about. And actually, it is really good. I think it is giving a different sense of what the church can be to students of that age, that many of whom have never been part of a church. So that's cool. And thank you for that, Sandy.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I guess, Martin, I could say that at our church, we're just having a little concert. We just started planning this the other day. We have a minister who sings well, and people often ask that she would sing more. So she's doing a concert at the end of November, and we're doing a dinner before. So we're doing just kind of a small scale thing. So we've done this before also, where we have local musicians who are solid musicians, but we just have a small event and let them use the space for free, essentially, or have the church kind of sponsor it. So that works well in our rural context.
I'll just add one thing to it. I do many of the things you are talking about, but on a small scale. But what you have to understand is I do not have a base of 20,000 people. I have a base of 2,000 people. And the problem is when you try to find resources and volunteers and an audience with that small base, it can be very difficult.
Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah.
Our town is 300 people.
Well, don't feel bad. My second point is 50 people.
I don't feel bad at all. There's often great energy in our little place.
Yeah. All right.
The funny part is that the remembrances, many of them are more like the one-room schoolhouse. And that was the hub of a rural community. Mm-hmm. And in essence, that is basically the theory that I work with.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, can you say a bit more about that, Martin?
Well, in the old days, before consolidating all the schools in most provinces, there was the one-room schoolhouse. And what you lost when you consolidated and put it in one big place is you now had a theater arts program at the local high school. In the old days, the one-room schoolhouse had a bed sheet that was across a clothesline at the front, and that was the curtain. And that fostered people to come to see it because their own relatives and cousins and everything were in it. That's basically the theory that I have to work with. There is no, academia here that we're going to connect to other than my local consolidated high school. And a bus ride for some of these kids is an hour long. So I have to make things fit the scale. And a lot of it is actually almost retro. I'm sorry, but it is. It's a community building in reverse that I'm trying to fill in from the loss that they had when they were just local.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you. By way of kind of giving us some closure for our time together, I'd like us to each just take a moment and share what has been the gift of this call for you today. If you were to pick one thing that really stands out for you, and I'd invite our topic guides to join in as well, what would you say has been the gift of this call for you as you've been participating and listening? And whoever would like to go first can go first.
I will if you wish.
Sure, Tom.
Martin has just identified the tremendous difference between rural and urban Canada today. I'm very much in the urban setting where the United Church struggles to respond to the new urban young adult populations, and that's where I throw myself. And I may not have much to offer, Martin, except my hopes and my prayers for you. However, I did hear other people who are doing very similar things to what I'm doing in Winnipeg and in Markham and elsewhere. And I would look forward to networking and very practically receiving support from you and supporting you in the future.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Anyone else?
I think for me, it's seeing the amazing focus, passionate drive to work with our transforming culture within the United Church of Canada, and to bring a higher level of service not only to our own congregants, but to bring a higher level of service to community. And it's lovely to see the homogeneity of that across the people who've participated today.
Thank you. Well said. Thank you.
For me, it's just sort of an understanding that people are doing a lot more with online activity than we certainly have considered. So it's a huge curiosity that's been awoken for me, as well as a sense of wonder and awe at the activities that are occurring across Canada from the participants today. And yes, as Tom says, it would be great to keep in touch on some of these topics for sure.
Great, thank you. Anita or Martin, any gifts for you from this conversation today?
This is Anita. Just connecting with people is always a good thing, and hearing about how the drama is being done in a different place might help us to get on track with what we're doing here.
Martin.
I just enjoy hearing other ideas, and somehow I'll glean something that will fit my context.
Great. I'd just like to join in saying that, yeah, it's been a pleasure to be part of this call today. I feel like I'm standing in a garden that is very diverse and full of wonderful blossoms and richness. So thank you all for sharing that. And I would really invite you to, when you fill out the survey, to share any ideas you have about how we could, do other topics or how we can share this. The other piece would be, how do we help make this available to more people, these conversations? So I would really encourage you to share this with your networks, the online conversations that are still to come. If you found this to be valuable, I would really encourage you to share and promote it amongst your networks. And also, we will be kind of looking at how do we take this forward, perhaps in 2018 and beyond. How do we use this modality as a way to, as Sandy said, link people across the country where there's amazing things happening that could provide encouragement and that aha second that we might sometimes need to know the next step we need to take. So your thoughts about that would be really appreciated. So thank you so much, all of you, for being on this call. And perhaps kind of by way of close, just kind of wave and say goodbye. And hopefully, Martin, I'll see you again, and everybody else too. That would be wonderful. Okay, thank you so much.
Take care now.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.